Yeah, I wanted to ask you, and because my understanding is there was no way he was going to be prosecuted, according to Tucker Carlson. This was all, he was all going to be
Elon Musk too.
Elon Musk. I mean, some of the greatest minds in the country told us that this was an impossibility. They said this only, I guess, what was it, 6 to 8 months ago or something. So it's rare that you get the opportunity to test your theses so quickly. But how much of that was like, I mean, you just said this was a cultivated sort of image. How conscious was he? What was the purpose of all of that political influence he bought? I want to talk about, I want to go into this a little bit. I don't know how much of that reporting you have done, but, a guy we've had on the program multiple times over the years, McKelvey, who was started Data Progress, apparently was a big recipient of his funds. A lot of the sort of like centrist popularists received some of this money or were backed in there. Like, how much of these political and he also gave money to Republicans as well. How much of that money that he was spending was he wanted to impact politics in some specific way, or how much of it was part to cultivate his image and to protect him from something like this?
Right. I think it was very much a matter of self-interest. He had said to other people, and this has been reported on, it was mentioned in court by Caroline Ellison, I believe, that he thought the ROI, the return on investment, which is how he saw the world for political donations, was very high, that you could spend a small amount of money and get a lot of influence in return. And I think just based on the legislation that was moving through Congress before this company collapsed, one bill was to regulate crypto was called Sam's bill, sort of colloquially on Capitol Hill, that this was very much about expanding his business. We have to remember that FTX, while it had a US exchange, it was a lot smaller. The main exchange, FTX.com or FTX Global, was based in the Bahamas, and it sold risky products like derivatives that aren't allowed in the US. You can't sell those crypto derivatives products. So it very much seems to me, based on what I've learned, that this was about legitimizing crypto and finding a regulatory regime that was very friendly to him, hopefully running through the CFTC, and that would allow him to bring this business onshore. I mean, whether his claims to really care about pandemic preparedness and some of these other long-term issues were legitimate, I don't know. But I think we can say that it was certainly mixed up with a lot of corruption. I mean, CoinDesk found that about a third of Congress received donations from FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, and his various affiliates. And finally, one day before this all went down, I believe it was last summer 2022, I asked Sam and Ryan Salem, one of his top executives, who was sort of the front man for the Republican donations. He had just announced a new donation to some right-wing Republicans who were against COVID mitigation efforts and things like that. I said, how can you guys be donating to these people? This was on Twitter. I'm not sure if the exchange still exists because Sam deleted a lot of tweets. But, these are folks who, how could they believe in pandemic preparedness when they don't believe in universal health care or even that COVID is potentially real? And they had a sort of shifty answer, both of them. But I think we have to understand that while sometimes you may hear things about, it's about pandemic preparedness or even this vague idea of saving the world, there really were a lot of short-term monetary interests, I think, being satisfied by this political influence campaign.
Well, I'm curious how many politicians we are no longer sort of pushing crypto. There was a couple of Democratic politicians. I think was it Gillibrand and was it
Booker was kind of interested for a little bit.
There was somebody else too. They were talking about maybe even as a retirement scheme.
Yes. Gillibrand went on TV and said people should put their retirement in crypto.
Is she doing that anymore? Is she like pushing those ads as much?
I haven't heard as much lately. I mean, things have shifted. I mean, I think a lot of politicians kind of walked away with their tail between their legs. But other things have happened too. Now there's a little bit more talk about crypto being used to fund illicit activity or terrorism. It really does contribute to that in some ways. But so you have someone like Cynthia Loomis, who was a laser-eyed Bitcoin fanatic, is now saying, "Hey, we need to investigate Tether." A major and very suspicious offshore crypto firm that did a lot of business with Sam Bankman-Fried. So the landscape has certainly changed. I still wouldn't say we're beyond sort of the the crypto-led influence campaign. Now Coinbase has really stepped up. I've heard that they're going to be meeting with lawmakers in Pennsylvania soon, and they're doing things on Capitol Hill and going state by state. So they're trying to sort of take the mantle as the responsible regulated crypto exchange that can now help shape this new regulatory regime. And they still might get what they want.
But how much of what Bankman-Fried did was a function of crypto, as opposed to a function of the sexiness around crypto, and what he was doing, you could do with what he was doing was basically what you could do with a hedge fund on some level, I guess, in terms of like the fraud was not necessarily particularly crypto centric as much as it was. Maybe he didn't get the scrutiny that he deserved because it was in this sort of like new sector.
Yeah, I think we've seen this growing number of cases around crypto, not just SBF. And what I think we now understand is that a lot of existing laws can apply here, and that basically people are usually committing bank fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, crimes that might involve crypto, but are very familiar from traditional finance. So in a lot of ways, what Bankman-Fried was doing was he was lying to lenders, he was lying to customers. These are old-fashioned types of fraud. There was a crypto twist, and certainly that hype factor you talked about. And the other thing I would say is he created his own cryptocurrency, FTT, which a lot of exchanges do. And as sort of the in-house token, they give it out as a reward. But what he did was he owned most of the FTT. So on paper, they had a lot of fake money, really, of this token that had this billion-dollar valuation, and they would use that as collateral for loans to take out real dollars from lenders. Of course, it takes two. The lenders had to agree to it. But, that's sort of one of the crypto twists here, is that he kind of made his own counterfeit currency and then used it as collateral to borrow real money. And that's something we've seen in other places in crypto, but it's something that Bankman-Fried really took to a higher level.
Well, but I mean, who accepts that as collateral?
Wow. Some fools, okay, I would say, and some of the venture capitalists or some of the lenders that then testified at his trial. Some of them said, hey, if we had known the actual financial condition of his company, we wouldn't have done this. But, that's easy to say in retrospect. I think there was a lot of greed and a lot of this to go around. Yeah, I mean, now you have some of these VCs like Sequoia. Someone from Sequoia was talking about, hey, we were fooled too. But again, you have really one job, which is due diligence. And it seems like some of these lenders and venture capitalists put their money into more than one fraud.
What's the status, Jacob, of some of the celebrity high-profile endorsers of FTX? Like, is Tom Brady in any of this litigation? Sorry, Sam.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a number of lawsuits, and some of them have been combined into sort of this massive lawsuit that I'm forgetting the abbreviation. Something called, I think it's multi-district litigation. So you have a number of these lawsuits kind of put together, all these law firms working together. The celebrities are being sued, the venture capitalists. I think some law firms may be sued down the road, individuals involved in all this, a spokesman. So some of those lawsuits may settle, or the whole big mound of litigation may settle. And I expect the celebrities will be okay in the end. But, a lot of people want accountability here. I think that's another reason why you saw this trial go quickly. And there is accountability to call for it from these celebrities, from people who should know better or have better lawyers or better business managers. And they simply allowed themselves to go along with something that was a fraud nearly from the beginning.
Jacob, lastly, I have about $150,000 worth of NFTs. Is now a good time to sell?
I might hold on to see if the market improves a little bit. I think they're probably down about 97 to 99%.
Sam, I told you not to go in on those apes.
Does someone have a calculator I could borrow for a second? Jacob Silverman, thanks so much for coming on, talking to us about this, and very excited to read your first dispatch on Monday with the AM Quickie. Folks can check that out, amquickie.com. It's free 3 days a week, and then you can get it 5 days a week for a little change. Jacob, so excited to have you with us, and thanks so much for coming on. And are you going to be able to sort of like move on now from the Sam Bankman-Fried thing? I mean, this has been dominating, I would imagine, dominating your life for a while.
Yeah, I kind of hope so. I admit it gets a little tiring, and he's not the most sympathetic character. I would like to do other varieties of crime and illicit finance. There's going to be more litigation, and there's probably going to be a trial next March, perhaps around the campaign finance charges and this $150 million bribe that his colleagues say he paid to Chinese officials to unlock $1 billion in crypto that had been seized in a money laundering investigation.
Oh, wow.
So this isn't over. I think other people could be charged. Sam's own parents might face legal jeopardy. So I don't know if I can escape this story quite yet.
And we should say people should check out your book too with Ben McKenzie, right? And Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud. If you're like me and you find the story incredibly hilarious.
Yeah, if you want more of it. And,
yeah.
And there's an interview in there with Sam Bankman-Fried from the summer of 2022. And, I don't think we unmasked him as a fraud, but we certainly said, this guy doesn't seem like a genius and can't answer some basic questions. And that's really, I would argue, what was lacking before this all collapsed.
Wow.
Do we know how supportive Sam Bankman-Fried was of Eric Adams?
I couldn't recall the amount of any donations offhand. Adams certainly has crypto ties. He's friendly with Brock Pierce. He flew on his private jet to Puerto Rico. He offered to take some of his salary in Bitcoin. But I can't really say offhand what their relationship might be. I believe they have met, though. And there is a photo of them, actually, I should say, of them having dinner.
Yeah, they had dinner in I guess, in March of 2022 of last year. Yes. So
yeah, I think partially to establish jurisdiction, that an FBI agent testified to some of the phone forensics, saying that his Sam Bankman-Fried's phone was ping New York cell towers at these times. And one of those times they mentioned was when he was having dinner with Eric Adams.
Interesting. Maybe we'll hear more about that as time goes on. Jacob Silverman, always a pleasure. Thanks so much, man. And again, psyched to have you on the AM Quickie.
Me too. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.